I am she who is the blood rose, the walker of eternity, who penetrates all things seen and unseen with the uncompromising sight of the solar mind. I have come clothed in many names, Tosmulektai, Ham-Emp, Dahlia, Rasi, and Sekhmet among them. Before the gods of earth I came. I advanced from the great Cosm, the cloud of the Ismem, the firstborn. From my lion and human form, I coalesce the prima matra of each into the blood of the eternal fire. I am both the wave and the rider of the wave, for I was formed within the mind and simultaneously without, in the realm of non-mind. Yea, in my chariot, I am become the sun, the Sol-Ra of perpetual creation. I am both the widow in shadows and the lighted lady. I seek that which has been torn from my heart, and in doing so, I stalk the desolate spaces. Yet to those who call me, I lift my lamp to the soul. As we explore Sekhmet from the Thothic perspective, I will be reading from my old Temple Doors issue 2 of 1996. But I will also be commenting on this and bringing it up to date for the 21st century. And now from 1996. Thoth has told me that he comes from the mouth of Sekhmet. He explains that Sekhmet is a later version of an ancient sacred archetype, one of the Ismem, the primordial archetypes through which the earth's beginning archetypal patterns were established. While all the Egyptian gods have archetypal patterns resonating from them, they are not all solely archetypal. The Ismem have been entirely created through God presence, merging with the very ancient otherworld sentient consciousness. For instance, Thoth, or Tehuti, is a highly evolved soul who incarnated as the being Thoth, the master architect of the Great Pyramid. Now, he actually was here twice, once in his starship from the blue star Rigel as Thoth Muzurud, and later as Thoth Racemus of Afra, the incarnated on earth being who completed the work of the former. However, having been so empowered in his service, he is also an archetype or focus for attunement to higher mind in the archetypal form of Thoth, Tehuti, Hermes, and Mercury. On the other hand, Sekhmet has never been an ensouled being. She is a composition of sentient thought from many minds more ancient than the human mind may possibly comprehend in its limited view of time and the universe. Her later image was mutated, but her divine center remains. I might also comment here that Sekhmet is capable of appearing in her archetypal forms, and she can seem very real in those forms. The Egyptians inherited their knowledge of her from Atlantis, who in turn received her from Lemuria, or Mu. She has appeared to certain cultures independently as well. However, through each culture's lens, her form becomes mutable with the consciousness given her as a portal to humanity. Her core essence is unchanged, but her outer form and persona is somewhat altered by the sentience that embraces her. The first most ancient Egyptian Sekhmet contains much of her original essence. The lion-human form comes from the lion-headed ones of Sirius, who gave Tosmulektai her final transformation before she merged with the earth. Unless otherwise stated in this article, Sekhmet refers to her most ancient form, synonymous with Tosmulektai. She is also embodied in the Babylonian Ishtar, who appears in the Bible as Ashtoreth, Anath, Asheroth, or Esther, the Queen of Heaven, and the goddess Kor, who was prevalent in many world religions. Sekhmet is the opener of the third eye, not so much as a psychic sense, but as a transmission of primordial power from its fallen seat at the base of the spine to its original position as the portal of manifestation between the sacred tonal, throat, and the crown star, top of head. Thus Sekhmet is also the bringer of fire, for she ignites the third eye with the primordial first flame of eternal sight. Her power is not of the earth. She is not, as is Isis, Sophia, or Mari, an indwelling principality of the planet's feminine pillar. She arrives from the most ancient reaches of the cosmos to reclaim her lost children, that portion of souls who separated from her domain eons before the earth was a thought in the mind of God. When Sekhmet appears in our lives, it is time for us to share away illusions of our mortality and of our place in the space of time. We are beings called by her to know ourselves as multidimensional, unfettered by identification with planets, genders, or any form that cannot become mutable in the instant. It is in this summoning that we find the mystery and fear that has collected about the image of Sekhmet. She calls upon the soul to release all identification and thus all fear, for detached from identity requires a massive movement of faith in the essence of the spiritual orientation of the soul. Like a poultice, Sekhmet draws from us the contagion we hold in our identities with half-light memory. She challenges you in this act to know beyond a doubt from whence comes your true source of light, safety, and strength. Yet there is great compassion in Sekhmet for those who would be compassionate with themselves. One cannot face her tender side without the mantle of self-forgiveness. For those souls able to reach that depth into their own hearts, Sekhmet becomes the lighted lady, whose lamp shines a loving presence into the human experience. This gentler side of Sekhmet is evidenced by the ancient Egyptians more in the visage of Hathor, an aspect of Sekhmet, and also Bast and Bastet. I pause in the reading to say that although Hathor is intended to be a cow god in a way, and later we see it representing certain beings from other systems, we're looking at this archetypally right now, and not the veneer that has been placed on it through the ages. And from the original source of the Sekhmet archetype, Hathor would be seen as an aspect of that archetypal fire, but only brought into the nurturing elements of it. Sekhmet's temples of initiation on earth are still intact on the inner planes, and before the ascension moment of Light Principle 40, will become fully active again with the physical plane of reality. I will pause here to say what he means by fully active, not necessarily people walking around in temples of Sekhmet. He's speaking of it as a dynamic. There may be places where Sekhmet is recognized on that nodal point of the planet, and others where it is not. Maybe it's just in the middle of the forest somewhere. But he's speaking of nodal activity. The geographical sites for her main temples of the past are: one is near the Euphrates River in the Middle East, two within what Thoth calls the Shasta Matrix of California, in this instance a portion near Donner Pass, 3, a yet-to-be-located temple within the Mayan complex of Chichen Itza in the Yucatan. This temple was dedicated by Queen Amaluxal to the White Jaguar Lady, which was Sekhmet. On Easter Island and in the Himalayas of Tibet. In the future, 3 additional Sekhmet temples, both etheric and physical, will be located as follows. So before I read these, again, I wish to stress that even though he's speaking of a physical temple, it may not be what we think of. In other words, it could be a pile of stones dedicated to some sacred goddess that represents Sekhmet. It could be a temple, some kind of a temple, and it could be dedicated to a goddess or a force or power, feminine, divine, that's not called Sekhmet, but is Sekhmet. Or it could be a temple actually dedicated to Sekhmet, that name. So there are a lot of different potentials here that we can't even imagine some of them. But this is what he's meaning by physical. It's being brought to earth, and there's some kind of a marker in regard to it. So also, I'm saying in the future, 3 additional Sekhmet temples, both etheric and physical, will be located as follows. Well, they're already etherically connected here very strongly, and so I wouldn't call it future anymore, but I'm going to give them. One is near the Dead Sea. One is not far from Brisbane in Australia. Another is in the Sangre de Cristo mountain range of San Luis Valley in Colorado, and more specifically in this area of Crestone, somewhere probably closer to the sand dunes. Within these temples of the etheric, and at times physical, the initiate comes upon Sekhmet as both the dweller on the threshold and the lighted lady. Within Sekhmet's temples, one becomes perceptive to the multidimensional realm of being that awaits us in the transfiguration of this world into the new Earth Star consciousness. Each of these 8 temples, including those of both past and future together, presents a stage in the passage of the initiate into his or her new light body, that which Thoth calls the pure gem body. Sekhmet speaks to us again. I am as one who arrives in darkness, shedding light into the 8 fashions of totality, born of the eye of Ra, as it upholds the most holy temple of sacrament. Tosmulektai, Sekhmet, is the dynamic of creation. She arrives in darkness, within the place of the void, and there she establishes her reign by shedding light, bringing forth enlightenment within 8 fashions of totality, or 8 archetypes of herself, which are aspects of her union with matter. These 8 aspects, then, are her points of interaction with the sacred seed inside the profane. These 8 forms are born of the eye of Ra, as it upholds the most holy temple of sacrament. The eye of Ra, in this passage, is the divine portal between universes and is the creator of her 8 fashions or forms of expression in matter. Thus, her role as an interdimensional initiator is revealed. The eye of Ra keeps the balance between these universes, this balance being a sacred moment or foci, which is the most holy temple of sacrament. Within the Egyptian Hall of Archetypes, Sekhmet's 8 forms are represented in Neith, Ashereth or Ishtar, Akaru, Hethert, which is Hathor, Mot, Bastet or Bast, and the sacred twins Shu and Tefnut. She guardians sacred records or archetypal light programs contained within the archetypes of Neter-Neteru, Bennu, Ra, Shen-Ur, Me'ut, Nefertum, Kephara, and Kemti. She creates through what the ancient Egyptians called the 8 primordials. From an even more ancient perspective, Sekhmet herself is a primordial, for she is of the Ismim, who are the universal primordials. However, the Egyptian primordials are representations of earth creation rather than universal. These sacred 8 are Nu, Nut, Hehut, Heru, I'm sorry I mispronounced that, it's Hehu, Kekut, Kurth, Kekui, and Kerhet. Now, when Thoth is saying that these are of earth creation, they're still representing cosmic forces, but they are a later interpretation of those forces brought down to connect to the planet Earth. So they are our view of the cosmos. Takara. This temple rested near the Euphrates River in the Middle East. Its sacred records are represented by the Egyptian archetype of Bennu. The Bennu is a mythical bird resembling a heron. It was sacred to the ancient Egyptian city of Heliopolis, where it dwelt in its sanctuary on the Benben stone, or obelisk. The Bennu was seen as a phoenix-like creature who perpetuated its new form by transforming the old through the fire of alchemy. Anton Veggie and Alison Davidson state in the Book of Doors, and I'm quoting here, Herodotus records the Bennu bird making its appearance once only in 500 years, coming from Arabia, carrying in its beak an egg of myrrh that contained its father's body. This egg is similar to Geb's egg that was laid on the primordial hill and gave birth to the sun, the egg within which the whole alchemical process of transformation is effected. That's the end of the quote. Within the most inner Holy of Holies of the Temple of Takara, the sacred egg of Bennu was balanced upon a golden pedestal. It was a large, perfectly polished piece of alchemical crystal glass, a deep emerald in color. In size, it was approximately 3 times that of an ostrich egg. Into this Bennu egg had been inserted light codes of the consciousness Bennu represented. This had been dutifully accomplished in ritual involving toning, color, and mind imaging by high priests and priestesses of the temple for over 1,000 years. The egg was first created in Atlantis on the holy isle of Ruta, only later to find its place in the temple of Takara. The Bennu egg is still in existence in a most secreted chamber beneath the sands. In the temple of Takara, the initiate submits to the immolation of his/her outer form in the flame of purification. This is not a burning away of the flesh, but of the egoic mantle that conceals the greater ego of spirit. Its pure symbol is emerald green egg in the center of golden flames. Jafara, located on Easter Island, this temple is dedicated to the cosmic harmonic denoted by the Egyptian archetype Neter-Neteru. As an expression of the absolute, this archetype personifies what Thoth calls the Thothic universe, where all points meet and merge as if they had never been separated. The Lemurian view of the Thothic was one of being out of time and space, complete in its own sovereignty of perfection and light. When one entered the expression of the Thothic state, he or she would have to first move through many different volatile thought streams where complex image built into eternity. Then, as if shattering the mirror of self-expansion, the journeyer would break through the barrier of the complex mind and enter into the pure no-time, space dimension of beingness, where only the I Am exists. In outer world personification, the pattern of the Thothic universe, or Neteru, unfolds through the sacred tree of universal life. An initiate of the Temple of Jaffa learns the process of the Neteru within his/her own human focus. It is taught that the human experience is not outside the Thothic universe. Instead, the Thothic universe is within the sacred geometry of the human energy body, beyond the electromagnetic spectrum, although this truth can be demonstrated within the subtle fields of the electromagnetic. At Jaffa, one moves out of third-dimensional form and its attendant energy fields, and through direct relativity connects into the four event fields of the Archimede, known here as the monotonic, morphogenetic, rhombic, and omnipronic. And this is a reference to the article on the Archimede, so you're not going there in this discourse, but the Archimede essentially is a very powerful universal quantum dynamic. The pure symbol of Jaffa is Tree of Life. Andara. This ancient temple was located in what is now Northern California, near Donner Pass. It is from this site that Primordial powders and crystal glass are still revealed upon the land. The light codes received within the temple are represented by the Egyptian archetype Shen-Ur, whose key meaning from the Book of Doors is a, quote, circuit of heaven or cosmos, unquote. In the same book, what Thoth calls the Yismim are discussed under Shen-Ur as follows, and I quote, the elder gods are described as being the mysterious spiritual progenitors of the human race, the great old ones who manifest through primordial memory as the tremendously powerful elemental forces, unquote. In the Book of Doors, Shen-Ur represents the cyclic order of time. Thoth states that Shen-Ur is the guardian gate of the Ismim, and as such holds the key to the door of time, meaning that it aligns its knowledge to freedom from time, and thus space. At Andara, the original Lemurian colony became Andarians, a new race of light-engendered beings, through their work with Shen-Ur and the Prima Matra upon the land. They incorporated time into their cells as a whole movement, rather than in the linear, compartmentalized fields which our cells currently hold. The pure symbol of this temple is Circle of 13 Stars. Quetzalcoatl. Remnants of this Sekhmet temple are still within the rich green tangle of the Yucatan, not far from the uncovered portion of the Mayan Chichen Itza ruins. It was dedicated by Queen Amaluxal to the White Jaguar Lady, or Lady Dahlia, in eons past. Amaluxal created a palace temple for the cat woman appearing to her in her visions, whom she called the White Jaguar Lady. It was only after an Egyptian named Thothic came from Egypt to Quetzalcoatl with sacred star charts that the queen realized her Lady Dahlia to be one and the same as the lion-headed Sekhmet. With the help of Thothic, an initiate of Sekhmet, Queen Amaluxal reformed her palace into a true initiatory temple of Sekhmet. In the temple of Quetzalcoatl, the light codes guardian and received by the initiate are represented by the Egyptian archetype of Nefertum. Archetypally, Nefertum is the child of Sekhmet and Ta. He is seen as the divine lotus, a flower sacred to the Egyptians. From the Book of Doors, and I quote, Nefertum is the young Tem, the sun god rising on a lotus flower from the primeval waters. The lotus emerging from the water became a symbol of the sun rising from the darkness, and for the Ka rising from the body of the dead. In Memphis, the creative fire of Ta, in conjunction with the female element, the living water of Sekhmet, brings forth Nefertum, just as the lotus plant sends its budding flower through the water to blossom in the full light of the sun. And as the blossoming lotus yields its perfume, so Nefertum is the quintessence, the pure essence distilled from fire and water. Thoth says of Nefertum, "It is the quickening of spirit as it finds itself free of matter. Yet as this enlightenment enfolds the spirit, it longs to share the song of flight with the matter child, and thus returns to embrace infant life and suckle it upon dreams of purity and light." In the temple of Sekhmet, dedicated to the light codes of Nefertum, the initiate was given direct experience of the freedom from the body, astral travel, into higher dimensions of spirit form. He or she was then brought back into the matter body in a way that enhanced the soul's love of that form and desire to share with it the joy of flight. The pure symbol of this temple is a dove flying out of the mouth of a lion. The next temple, Himhere, Letba. Atop the mountains of the Himalayas in Tibet, there is a tunnel cut in stone, leading into a valley not accessible any other way. In this, the Valley of the Blue Star, is the Sekhmet temple of Himhere Letba. Of the 5 temples of Sekhmet within this grid, which we are profiling here, Himhere Letba is the only one that is still active on the physical plane. And I would say this still applies in the year 2021. The light codes of this temple are personified in the Egyptian archetype of Ra, the sun god. The Book of Doors describes Ra as the mystery of creation embodied. Authors Veggie and Davidson state that he is described as a cosmic principle, an abstract impassive principle containing within itself all of the possibilities that might take form and become manifest." Unquote. Thoth places the archetype Ra on the throne of the Thothic universal as the golden white sun of the 144,000 suns. In this he means that the golden white sun is the embodiment of totality, which is defined in the complete harmony of the 144,000 stars composing what Thoth calls the divine body, or Yeshurata Kominke. This divine body contains light codes for the complete template of the human being, the Adam Kadmon. Thoth speaks of the foundation stars previously, which he defines as those incorporations of living lights which were received in divine consecration in the beginning of creation as a foundation stone for the universal temple as it is revealed to the worlds of being within the divine Ishatan. Yet even the foundation stars, Thoth tells me, are within the Yeshata Kominki, which is a greater body, including all components of the heaven temple. Thus, in the temple of Himhere Letba, the initiates of the 144,000 suns still attune to the central sun of the Thothic universe, moving streams of divine love from that core into the central sun of the earth. The pure symbol of this temple is a single sphere of light encompassed by 144,000 points of light forming circles within circles. The greater grid and temple formed by the 5 Sekhmet temples reflects the body of man, the pentagram of human interaction with spirit and matter. This grid offers a field of resonance with this principle. In the future, the remaining 3 Sekhmet temples will move this dynamic from the octave of 5, which is the current number of cohesion between light and matter in the 3rd dimension, to the octave of 8, which is the number of cohesion between light and matter in the new Earth star reality. As the Earth aligns to Light Principle 40, its ascension matrix, the movement toward identifying with future source is exemplified in the process of integration with greater light-to-matter octaves, such as the 8-temple complex will exemplify. Now, in 2021, we are within the event horizon of a new world. And in that event horizon, there is conflict, fear, uncertainty, chaos, all the things that seem to say something is ending. And yet at the very same time, something truly wonderful is beginning. And yet it is not for the weak of heart. It is for those who understand that the challenge at hand is what they were born for in this life, in this incarnation. Not to fight, not to, hate others or try to oppose things. But they were born for the conflict because they know the way of integration, of frequency, of resolve through spiritual connection, the passion of spirit, indeed, the spiritual warrior. And this is where the separation is between those who fight as a rabble against the unjust and those who perceive it as a path to enlightenment and take the steps and actions that that path requires. And so it is.